Welcome to Talking Giants presented by SeatGeek. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Pennick, and we got our first mailbag of the Giants 2024 season. Everything was bad in that game. We're going to break it down. A little bit of positive. How about that? Not positive vibes only, but some positive vibes here on the Talking Giants show. We're going to talk DJ, O-line, Brian Dale play calling, Shane Bowen, all that good stuff. Justin, how are you?
Bobby Skinner, I'm good. I'm famous because I threatened death upon New Jersey Transit. I called them a bunch of F-heads, and the New York Post quoted me, and Frank the Tank is now my best friend. I'm good. After being delayed for 3 hours today on my way to work, so I got basically nothing done today. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I'm ready for the mailbag. We've always said mailbag is actually the best pod of the week for Talking Giants. A lot of times it's narrative busting, and it's going to be a little bit of narrative confirming in this one with a little bit of busting in there too.
A little bit of busting in there?
I think our eyes,
Sorry.
I shouldn't have said that. I think our eyes on Sunday did tell us the truth. And I want to say this disclaimer at the top too, because people are like, oh, where do I ask questions for the mailbag? They sent, we only take mailbag questions from our Twitter account. We put it out Tuesdays in the morning. Just because we can't sort through a bunch of different platforms. So
and
the
no
Talking Giants
anymore.
Twitter, like even if, hey, I'm not saying you need to, be active on Twitter, but if you're not on Twitter and you want to ask mailbag questions, just make a Twitter account, follow Talking Giants, put notifications on Tuesday. But yeah, so let's get into it. Before we get into it, Justin's episode is brought to you by some special people. We got Robbie Gordon. We got Liam Sheehan. Wow, Liam, welcome back, my brother. We got the Wood, not the Wood brothers, who are my heroes, but the Wood. Nick Sirocco, which is not the same as Rob Sirocco.
Any relation to Rob?
Nope, not spelled the same. Zach Kablowdy. There's a car commercial down here where the guy goes, Kablowy. They don't. If you have bad credit, they'll sell it to you. They rip you off. Andrew Elliott, Chase Elliott's brother, Bill Elliott's son. And Ryan Gelshenin, he knows how to get the Gales. Nate Hiles, I don't know what goes with that. Nate the Great, Brian Feingold, he finds a lot of gold, and then Tim Wrightman, he's not the wrong man, he's the right man. Justin, who are these people?
What a list of people! Oh my goodness gracious! All those wonderful people went to Patreon.com/Talking Giants, and for $2 a month, you can hang out with us live while we record the shows. Can't even say that we're going to celebrate Victory Monday, because that would be kind of a lie. We have the Commanders this Sunday. Who knows?
We will be celebrating a Victory Monday.
We better. Bobby Skinner also does some he sends you stickers in the mail, and then a couple times a month he does a shirt raffle for our Patreon members. Patreon.com/Talking Giants. Thanks to our patrons.
You'll be glad you did. All right, take it away, Steve.
Mail time.
Mail time.
The mail's here. Come on. Bye, guys. Here's the mail. It never fails. It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes, I want to wail.
Thanks, Steve, from Blues Clues. Justin, let's get into the mail.
First question is coming from Frank at Frank_Pitts1. How long do you think it will take Daniel Jones to get benched? In my opinion, I'd give him one half on Sunday, and if he looks terrible, start Drew Lock.
So this is a very real thing. And I want to talk about just Daniel Jones's film and where you go from there. So we will answer the question. But a lot of times, even if you feel awful after a game, there's some really bad plays, but you're like, there's some good in here. There's some explanation. This was pretty brutal film to go through with Daniel Jones. One, you just didn't even have the bright spots there to, hide some of the bad. But, there's mistakes that he made where you see how he got, baited into those mistakes, Justin. There's a lot of inaccurate passes, which has been unusual for Daniel Jones' entire career. There's a couple deep shots where he doesn't pull the trigger. But the most worrisome thing for me, man, was that even when they're running quick game and it's an easy read, easy look, he's staring at it, he just didn't pull the trigger on some things. And that's where I'm like, oh no, is he completely broke. Like, there was multiple simple quick game concepts that he just didn't pull the trigger on, paired with all that other stuff, and you didn't really have the highlight moments. Like, even that throw to Malik Neighbors on the dig, right? I think that might have been Malik Neighbors correcting a wrong. I mean, the nickel corner dropped off was right in the spot where the ball probably was meant to be. Stephon Gilmore was in trail technique. Like, maybe it was just the best placement ever, but it's hard for me to buy that and the way he played this game. But even then, it wasn't a lot of good at all. And the fact, and this was something I said in the preseason, Justin, because there was obviously bad practices that we talked about. We were there, we covered. There was the bad preseason game, and people were talking about, oh, rust. And I'm like, man, I don't know why anybody is using this as a defense. This should be a worry, right? We're not talking about Daniel Jones coming off of a bad stretch with some bad O-line play. We're talking about him coming off of a neck injury and a torn ACL, and his job being on the line, and no one, like, people having vitriol towards him. Like, we've never seen him in this situation, and the first sample size of it was really, really bad. And I'm worried that, you know me, Justin, I'm not the put the backup QB guy in, but I'm not far off from it. And it's not because I love Drew Lock either.
Oh, it's just because of how bad it is. I mean, their longest play in the first half, I think, was not on first and second down, I should say. And I'm going to talk about this later when we talk about Brian Daboll's play calling. They didn't have a first down on first or second down in the first half. Their longest play on first and second down was 9 yards. Pass to Devin Singletary. I mean, you want to talk? Let's even talk about this. I don't love this metric, this on-target percentage on Pro Football Reference, but I was just curious while you were talking. I'm like, let me see what it is. You know, usually you'll have quarterbacks in the 60s or the 70s or even in the 80s, and that's when you know you're talking about a good quarterback. One game, but Daniel Jones's on-target percentage after 42 pass attempts was 29.3%. And why that's so glaringly bad, and why Daniel Jones, as I talked about that CPOE at the end of the first half, was like minus 20-something percent at the end of the first half for Daniel Jones. It's not like we have an average depth of target of 13, 14 yards. We have an average depth of target and completion of like 4 or 5 yards. And we're not even accurate when we're throwing the ball 4 or 5 yards down the field. There's no convincing anybody. I think for once, for the first time in Daniel Jones's career since 2019, Giants fans are all on the same side, just watching what we saw between the preseason, or even just watching what we saw the first game, being like, it's unacceptable, and it's unplayable.
Yeah, I mean, you have the second lowest average depth of target, and then basically the worst on target percentage outside of Jordan Love.
Yeah,
and his week 1 game.
It's not just bad; it's unplayable.
Yeah, you can't be you're inaccurate. You're having bad decisions while you're also not taking chances and pushing the ball down the field. I mean, there's what is the upside of playing you at that point?
Yeah, forget about taking chances and throwing the ball down the field. We're now at a point. We were at the point after 2022, saying, okay, well, we know that we have this part of the game mastered, the quick game, and Daniel Jones mastered that part of the offense. Well, what steps can he take up after that? We're not at that point. You know, if that point was, we're taking 4 steps forward, we've now taken 20 steps back.
Yeah, and it's hard to defend that. Now, here's where I'm not saying you got to do it right now. The Vikings are a bad matchup for Daniel Jones because, man, they make you process post-snap, and that's where Daniel Jones really struggles, like, when they don't have the picture. The Commanders are not the Minnesota Vikings. Now, I watched the film to see how different it is with Dan Quinn, but that secondary is certified trash.
It's young, man. It's so bad.
And because I don't have much faith in Drew Lock, right, which we'll talk about in a second, I would give him this Commanders game. But if he's bad against this Commanders defense, then you're like, oh, it's not. I mean, we're probably already saying it's completely broken. But it's like, that's like another level of like, oh, this is the team that you're struggling with, this team, right? Because the Vikings can make you look like that, and then you can go and have a good game the next week, even if you're not a good QB. The Commanders are not that team.
No.
You should, if you have the weapons that the Giants have, you should be destroying this Commanders secondary. So I would give him the Commanders game, but I would pull the trigger out that. And it's not because Drew Lock is good, right? Like, you know, you hope Daboll can coach Lock up a bit, but the preseason sample size was really bad too. So the Giants are really in a bad spot with this quarterback
But I am
position.
confident. I mean, here's what I will say. I don't like Drew Lock. Part of me thinks that Tyrod Taylor would be starting right now if Tyrod Taylor was here, but we can't live in that world. He's not here. I don't like Drew Lock. I don't think Drew Lock's good, but he is going to be better than this. He will be better than this.
Yes. But the question is, not is Daniel Jones good, but when he plays the Commanders, what does it look like?
Right, yeah, and if he plays the same way against the Commanders, we're going to be in the post-game recap, and then especially in the mailbag going into Week 3 against the Cleveland Browns. I will be calling for Drew Lock.
Yeah, I don't know
if I'll be calling for like Lock at the half, like the question is suggesting. I kind of have to feel the game out because you never know what your feelings are going to be in a game until you're actually there. And I don't think the Giants would make that decision in the middle of a game. I really don't think they would unless maybe they're in the game. But I honestly do think if you were to put a gun to my head, Bobby, this is the last game that the Giants are starting Daniel Jones on their own fruition. Like, this is it. I think this is it.
Yeah, I mean, and again, this isn't like, because there's going to be new people listening, like, oh my gosh, these guys they call for the backup every time. I have not called for the starter to be benched since Eli Manning in 2019.
No.
After week 2, I was like, it's time to put Daniel Jones in. You know, unless you want to count me saying Tyrod Taylor should start over Drew Lock, but I don't think that counts.
You mean Tyrod Taylor over Tommy DeVito?
Oh yeah, Tyrod Taylor over Tommy DeVito. I don't think that counts. But that is because if again, there's no excuses for and this isn't a conversation of like, is he still good? This is like, can you just be the best QB on the roster? Because if he looks halfway decent, you know, above average versus the Commanders, I'm like, okay, you're still the best QB on the roster. If you look below average versus the Commanders, I am saying you no longer are. So this isn't like is Daniel Jones, is there any shot of him being here long term left? No, that's completely gone. But it's just getting through this season, and I know people are already talking about tanking and shit, but I would like the Giants' best quarterback to play. And if he looks bad versus the Commanders, I am saying I don't think it's this guy, number 8.
That's where I think we're going to be at, unfortunately.
Now, it's the rough. What sucks about that is, like, even if you are in that spot when you're calling and saying it's the right decision, I'm like terrified of Lock as well too. It's just like, you know, the preseason.
But at least
I know what Drew Lock is. The preseason he threw a worse interception than DJ did in this game. And and against preseason defensive vanilla looks.
But at least you know it's Drew Lock, though. That's the thing. You know, where even DeVito gets a pass because it's the UDFA shine, right? Where it won't. We're not going to be watching Giants games getting the same reaction when Drew Lock makes an inaccurate throw or Drew Lock makes an interception versus Daniel Jones that you're paying $40 million to. It will not elicit the same reaction, emotion, or make you question just organizational dysfunction, right? Because it's Drew Lock.
And the injury clause shit too,
well,
right?
You got to be careful with that, though. I mean, and I don't think Daniel Jones would ever have a case, like if he were to ever take this to court, right? He would not have a case if, like, oh well, the Giants just benched me simply because they didn't want me hurt. Like they do have to. They better have people that close their mouths in that building. And it has to be performance-based, which is really funny because we've talked all offseason, Bobby, where we're trying to talk to these reporters who supposedly have people in the building, and especially a guy like Dunleavy who's been hitting a high batting average with a lot of stuff recently, which is knowing people. And every time that we've asked about Daniel Jones and people's opinions of him in the building, it's, oh, well, they're doing it because of the health. They're doing it because of the health, not necessarily because of the performance. They're doing it because of the health. And now 2 weeks into the season, when all the conversation was health, that's why we're prioritizing backup quarterback. That's why we're keeping Tommy DeVito. It's why we wanted to keep Tyrod Taylor so bad as we saw in Hard Knocks? And now 2 weeks into the season, you're going to say that it's performance? So they better be careful on how they go about benching him. But there's no argument. There's no argument on if he were to make an argument or a case. There's no argument. If he were to lose to the Commanders,
if Russell Wilson didn't have that happen, then
right. If you're going to lose to the Commanders in the same fashion that you lost to the Vikings, there is no argument on Daniel Jones's end on the performance side of it because it's unplayable.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any argument anyways. Anyways.
I had that thought today. I know you're probably not thinking about that, and I know you probably don't have much of a reaction to it, but I was thinking about that today on the train and having a conversation with even somebody at the office, being like, well, they better be careful because Jones could very well come back and say, well, you benched me because they have this clause and you don't want me to get hurt. Very well could happen. I don't think it will, though.
Well, if we're in this spot next week, then we'll break down that whole clause thing. All right, the next question.
Next question is coming from Jake Barrow at Do a Barrel Roll. Some play calling convo starters. Obviously early, but did you notice a difference between Daboll and Kafka as play callers? What is missing from this offense that was supposed to be bread and butter, staples for Daboll? And then, do you know what he's talking about? Can you follow up on the chicken and egg thing, responding Jones?
I made a little
calling?
selfie video. Shout out.
Okay.
Talking about it. So I want to talk about just like Viking specific game plan, and this is a little bit of what we talked about on the recap, but after watching some of the film and I made a selfie video because the heavy personnel thing was like, why are they doing this? And also, can I say, I know we referenced it on the recap pod. We fucking killed it on the preview pod for the Vikings. Like, killed it. Not to toot our horn a little bit, but it was like, man, this is, this was a confidence booster, like the shit that we called in this game. So the reason why they did the heavy personnel is simple. That they didn't trust Daniel Jones against this Viking defense. It's not just any defense that they don't trust Daniel Jones to run some of the stuff they want. It's the Vikings specifically because they do so much post-snap, right? Like, when you watch the film, it's a chaotic defense, man. And there's windows that you think are open that are closing. Like, it's understandable for bad QBs to have, like, these their worst games versus the Vikings because it causes so much chaos. So, Brian Daboll, who didn't expect Daniel Jones to be processing first down, second down, third down, just put the game in your hands, got in heavy personnel, wanted to run the ball a little bit more, because when you get in heavy personnel, the Vikings have to just line up and run a basic defense. You can't have all those games because then if you're doing all that stuff, they'll just run down your throat. So they have to play a more basic defense. You get some looks like that. That's why Brian Daboll did that, which I kind of understand. Now, here's part of it where I disagreed. We talked about on the preview pod, run at Ivan Pace. He takes chances. If he takes chances when you're running at him, that allows for big plays. They ran away from Ivan Pace, and Pace made a few stops by chasing the play from the backside.
Right, because he's athletic and he's fast and he's twitchy and he can do that.
Yeah, so that's one reason why some of the run game stuffed is because Ivan Pace was shooting gaps from the backside and making plays from the backside of the run. Right, so that's one part where I disagree from it. I don't like some of the play. They didn't get to some of their play action bread and butter stuff that they did.
No, I thought we would see that.
There were some concepts really missing that we've come to know for the Giants for the last 2 years, which we'll talk about. But that's where the chicken or the egg thing is, where it's like, are you mad at Brian Daboll for doing a game plan around being like, I don't trust Daniel Jones to do this because I think he's going to throw 4 or 5 interceptions, even though he did play bad in those situations. But the issue is it just put you on third down, whereas where the Vikings can cause their most chaos. So it's kind of where it's the chicken or the egg. It's where it's like, well, Brian Daboll's doing this because of Daniel Jones versus this specific defense. But I still thought Flores killed him on a lot of stuff. Just they weren't ready for looks. There wasn't outlets in certain places. I thought that they would try and isolate Malik Neighbors a lot more, and there was really just no isolation Malik Neighbors routes out there.
I also thought Brian Daboll kind of admitted. Did you listen to Daboll's post-game presser?
Yes, I don't know what you're referring to though.
I'm gonna refer to I didn't love that he was like, oh, I thought they were gonna bring more pressure. I was kind of taken aback that they didn't bring more pressure. Like, all right, well then adjust.
And
adjust
that's
to that.
something we called on the preview part, is they show pressure and they drop back out of it.
Yeah. So, I mean, he didn't... I didn't love that Daboll doesn't really show anything or give any kind of insight during these post-game pressers, but he dropped a little bit of a line of how he was surprised to see that they weren't bringing as much pressure as he thought. Didn't love that. Just didn't love it. I don't want to, even if you're privately thinking it, I don't want my head coach to publicly act like he's a little surprised by defense doing something differently than what he expects. I have some first and second down stats during the first half if you want to hear it.
Hit me.
Giants offense on first and second down during the first half. The second half you get to non-game neutral situations and you're throwing the ball because you're behind, right? 0 first downs. What was something that I said statistically during the preview pod, Bobby? The Giants need to win the game on first and second down. They did not do that. They lost the game on first and second down. What did the Vikings do? They won the game on first and second down. The Giants faced 18 third downs. The Vikings faced 10. Daniel Jones was 5 for 10, 17 yards, 1 sack, only 4-yard loss. And then he himself had 3 rushes for 8 yards on first and second down. Devin Singletary had 5 rushes for 20 yards. That's 4 yards per carry. In total, there was 11 passes to 10 rushes. I probably will say that at least 2 of Daniel Jones's rushes, if not all 3, were designed passes that he went and actually scrambled. So if anything, we'll put the passes up to the pass to run ratio on first and second down up to like 12 to 13 to like 9 or 8 rushes. The biggest play of the first half on first and second down was a 9-yard pass to Devin Singletary. A staple of Brian Daboll's offense outside of schematics, Bobby, is that the Giants, just for the life of them, since he's gotten here, cannot get off to a fast start. They have been the worst team in the National Football League over the last 2 to 3 years in the first quarter and scoring points in the first quarter. It is nauseating. It's nauseating. I'm willing to give Daboll a lot of room and a lot of room for error. I'm trying to think of the word. For a lot of things, especially with the quarterback that he is now dealing with. But for the life of me, I can't understand why a great offensive mind and a great offensive play caller, like we're talking about an opening menu and an opening schedule of plays that is giving you very similar results, if not worse than what Jason Garrett gave us. It's bad. They need to get off the faster starts.
Yeah, they have to. And then here's the difference between Mike Kafka. Now, again, this could be Vikings specific, and this is another disclaimer I wanted to do at the top, is because it's week 1, you don't want to crazy react like, oh my God, this is all that they're going to do now. But there was some like stuff that they ran multiple times every single game just in the last 2 years that they just didn't run at all. Like mesh, that's their third down. That's been their third down go-to the last 2 years, right? And there's all variations, right? And I don't want to get too filmy, but like, where you have the 2 shallow routes crossing and then something in the middle and the running back runner. They didn't run that one time. Not one time. The Yankee, right, which is the play action, deep post in the crosser. That's been a money play for them. They didn't run it one time. Not one time, right? Like, let's get Hyatt on the field for some of that stuff. And there were some other concepts that they just came to run. It was a lot of just three level high to low concepts, right? The flood, right, where it's just 1, 2, 3 up high to low on the sideline.
Love that
and
play.
And then dagger, which is kind of a high is a not a 1, 2, 3, but it's like the 1 is clearing out and then the 2 and the 3 are the option. Like those are basically like their only like chunk play type of concepts, and the rest was just some basic quick game stuff. So you didn't see like any types of plays where they're isolating neighbors on the sideline or making an effort to do that. A couple 4 verts plays, but I want to see versus Washington what he's running, because if he doesn't pull some of that stuff out of the playbook, that's a crazy change, and you're getting rid of plays that have been your money makers over the last 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, and he called those in Buffalo too, right?
Yeah. I mean, especially the wave one. The Yankee one was more of like a DJ likes this one. Mesh, I
know. I've heard you talk about flood.
Yeah, I mean that's everyone runs that stuff. The Giants
Yeah.
actually haven't run a ton of that over the last 2 years, but it's there. I mean, there's just some concepts that they ran multiple times every game that they didn't run at all in this game.
No, but I'm willing to cut him a break, though, man. Like, really, what do you?
It's week 1, and it's the Vikings defense, so I'm not gonna.
And it's also you're seeing what the quarterback's doing.
Yeah.
You're seeing what the quarterback's doing, man. So I'm willing to give the benefit of the doubt. That's the phrase I was looking for. I'm willing to give Brian Daboll the benefit of the doubt over what he's done over his entire career, over what he's done since 2022 with Jones, in 2023 with Tyrod Taylor, with Tommy DeVito. I'm not going to let this one game or a
bad game plan for week 1 against a chaos defense.
Against a quarterback that has an average depth of target of 6 yards and can barely complete a ball. I'm not gonna let that sway my opinion on Brian Daboll too dramatically. Can I be not thrilled, especially like isolating Malik Neighbors? Like, yeah, can I be not thrilled about some of that stuff? Yeah, but am I gonna drastically change my opinion on Brian Daboll? I'm gonna sit and try not to. Right? I'm going to sit here and try not to.
All right. Next question.
Next question is coming from DeekFreak72 at JJDeekFreak72. Bobby, can I get a Let's Go Devils, an ad read, or both?
You can't get both. One, Let's Go Devils. But you know what I always try to be? A fan that never loses, because I never want to lose. Here's what I mean. The Giants, they don't win every single week. Not very many. Hopefully, there's some weeks where they do. But, we know already, they don't win. But even when they lose, I'm still loving the game. I still got the passion. You can see how passionate I am about this mailbag. I'm still loving football because whether it's a big deep ball or some third and short conversions or just a great tailgate in the parking lot, which Talking Giants has one, there's always something to cheer for. And it's the best beer to pair with awesome moments. And that is... on your screen, that's a Corona. I'm so happy Corona is on board with Talking Giants this year. They are my favorite beer in the world. They're supporting us, and it's the best beer to pair with awesome moments. Corona. Corona is all about finding the maximum amount of joy with every moment of the game, win or lose at home or on the road. It's the perfect beer to go along with watching football and all the moments that come with it. Justin, when the Wood Brothers won at Daytona, guess what? I came home, went on my back porch, I popped the top on a Corona Extra. So cheers to everyone who loves the game beyond the scoreboard. Corona, for the fans who never lose. Get yours at ordercorona.com. For 21 plus, relax responsibly. Corona Extra Beer, import by Crown Imports, Chicago, Illinois. You'll be glad you did. Did you see Eli Manning is a Corona guy too?
Oh, yeah, he's been in all the commercials. Andy Samberg?
Yeah, it's like us, Eli Manning. We're the Corona people.
We're the Corona people.
He's talking about a tailgate too. We need Corona. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. You should get Eli Manning out to a Talking Giants tailgate.
It's a fair ask.
It's a very fair ask. He should be out there. So Eli, I know you listen every once in a while. Come check out a tailgate.
Come check out a tailgate. You'll be glad you did, Eli.
You'll be glad you did. You'll be glad you Corona'd. Justin, next question.
Next question is coming from Leo DiCaprianado at the Magnum_Dong. Hello. Since most of the questions will be negative, I'll ask a positive. There you go, Leo. How good does it feel to have Jermaine Eluemunor on the right side of the line? Thought he played a good game. So, Bobby, let's talk about Jermaine, our right tackle, who we love, and we'll talk about the rest of the offensive line in general, too.
Dude, the offensive line was just, good.
Yeah.
Not perfect, but good. Especially pass protection-wise. Run game, there's some issues. But it was, here's what I'll say. It wasn't the best run game blocking, game for run blocking. But you know what they weren't? Times last year where it's how can anybody succeed behind this bad? They were fine.
I don't know if they had a negative play.
I don't think there was a negative. There were some 0-yard runs, but there were no negative. I have I have each individual carry for the running backs. 3, 5, 4, 2, 4, 6, 1, 7, 2, 3, 0, 0, 6. So no negative runs.
Yeah, but I think a lot of did the 0-0-6 maybe come in the 0-0 did that come in the second half, late in the third quarter, fourth
One was
quarter?
Tyrone Tracy where he should have hit the hole a little harder, and one was Eric Gray where Ivan Pace chased him from behind.
Yeah, I don't even remember those 2 zeros, so maybe that came in the second half, or maybe even came in the fourth quarter after I left.
One was in the first quarter, one was in the either late third, early fourth.
Okay.
But Eluemunor, man, not everyone watches the offensive line report. That was like the most refreshing segment I've done in a long time. Refreshing like Corona. Shout out, another ad. Corona, you need to hook it up to where we're like NASCAR drivers, where anytime we mention you or hold you, we get a little bonus, because I'll do it all the time. But he was so refreshing to watch. Like, he gets to his landmarks. He's patient. He's strong to deliver and take blows. Uses his hands well. He doesn't make mental mistakes. Like, that was just fun to watch, especially like we have been through so much at right tackle over the years, man. Like Nate Solder, right? Like, I saw your guys' video of like worst NFL free agency contracts, and I'm like, how the hell you not put Nate Solder on there? Evan Neal the last 2 years. Trying Eric Flowers out there, right? Like people love Tyree Phillips, and Tyree Phillips did not play good. He just didn't play like the worst ever. It's been so bad that Jermaine Eluemunor just going out there and being good was just like beautiful to watch, where we're not watching. And then you have Andrew Thomas, obviously left tackle. Like, we watch our quarterback just be not affected by the tackles sucking at all. Like, there was one play where Eluemunor stopped Jones from hitting Theo Johnson, or maybe even Malik Neighbors for a deep shot. Doubt he would have pulled the trigger. But he was still able to check the ball down to Daniel Bellinger. Like, it was... I've never been happier to do the O-line report. Besides, like, the first year when I'm like, look at all the views this is getting.
And that's why it's such a shame, man, that you have Jones as cooked as he is, because I really did think with the improvement in the receiving room, but especially on the O-line, like Jones having time to bounce in the pocket, stay connected. Your feet are bouncing, you can move up, and he had that time. And especially when you have the tackles that are locking down, where you can step up in the pocket because the guys are, being washed around the corner and shit like that. And that's why this sucks. This is going to suck a lot more, because I think we're going to watch a pretty decent O-line. They may have their games. Like, hey, let's wait and see how the interior does against the better Commanders unit. Let's wait and see how the tackles do versus the Browns, where you have Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith. So, I think they're going to have their moments, but overall, I think this is going to be the best overall complete offensive line that we've seen in a long time. And I think right tackle is going to be the most important part of that.
Yes, again, it's not a perfect unit, right? Like, so John Michael Schmitz only had one pressure allowed. I thought it was a solid game for him. He wasn't dominant to the point where I'm like, okay, victory lap. He's got it, right? I think this game up against Washington's a huge test for him. You see some improvements in some of the stuff where he's like not letting guys time up his punch and stuff, but there is some worries in JMS's game that the week one didn't eliminate. But they just worked together so good as a unit. Like, there was a couple stunts that the Vikings worked, but they worked a lot, man. And one of them that they worked was defensive holding on Jihad Ward, where he's literally just holding John Michael Schmitz and not allowing him to come off the block. And then the other one was that John Runyon, Andrew Thomas one. But like, they picked up a lot. And so like, Greg Van Roten didn't play good. And people are like, oh, but Greg Van Roten, right? He gave up 2 QB hits and 2 pressures. The Giants had 27 performances last year that were the same or worse than that. 27.
Okay.
10 where they gave up 6 or more. 3 of 8 or more. Like 45 offensive linemen had worse performances than Greg Van Roten in week 1. Like, think about week 1 last year, where we had the worst 2 performances in the NFL on Mark Lewinsky and Evan Neal.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people are looking at that final sack number. What did PFF credit Daniel Jones to 3 of them?
Yes.
Like, he owns 3 of them.
Doing so.
Yeah. So I know some of the pressures they gave to Daniel Jones as well. So I will say that Brian Daboll says something that I really do enjoy, and I'm going to start using it. Sacks is a team stat, and Daniel Jones, for 60% of those sacks, according to PFF, and I think, Bobby, you agree with it, 60% of those sacks, Daniel Jones owned those sacks. So I really thought the O-line played well. I was disappointed to see on Sunday that, when we said in our post-game pod that, oh, no, they didn't. They allowed 5 sacks. I thought they played really well, at least from a pass blocking perspective. Watching Jermaine's right hand and his outside hand, I think Jake Barrow talked about this, but if, watch your 44-second reel on him that you posted, a little highlight reel on Twitter. Watching his outside hand and how he uses that hand to kind of control the rep, whether somebody's going to go right at him and attack him, that he could shoot those hands out. Kind of just uses that outside hand as kind of like a not even a feeler, but just a way to, I'm going to control this rep, and I'm going to be the one that determines, based on what you do next, I'm going to be right there to respond to whatever you do. So Jake Barrow talked about that. I saw that too. Awesome. And I think that'll continue.
I agree, man. So it was fun to watch an offensive, like, think about like week 1 being a disaster, and then the O-line review was fun to do. Very good. Very good. All right, next question.
Next question is coming from Nooner at One Giant Nooner. Is it time to panic for Kayvon Thibodeaux? Another year begins with a disappointing performance.
I want to send this to you first because, you know, there's stats and stuff. I put the clip of I had to mute the conversation. That's how much like people were being like, oh my gosh, look at this dude type of stuff. Because, it was a very bad performance for Kayvon. Very bad performance. I don't care how good their tackles are. Darisaw and O'Neal made him look pathetic. But where are you at with Kayvon Thibodeaux? Because it's week 1. He had 11.5 sacks last year. Where are you at?
I mean, you know me. I think we were both, and I know especially myself, been way more critical of him last year, even when it wasn't sexy to be critical of him. I don't view him as a plus player. I view him as a good player. I view him as a player that will disappear. And for the 5th overall pick of a draft, and a guy that you said this line before, that you want to give a big contract to, and a guy that you want to build around, and this is one of the stars of our team, Kayvon Thibodeaux is not one of the stars of this team. He will have good games. He is a good player, but he is also a player that you need to understand that he will disappear. And oh boy, was this really a good disappearing act.
I think you summed it up perfectly, because there's going to be games where Kayvon's like, man, 2 sacks, 3 sacks, 2, like this week will probably be one versus the Commanders.
Oh, he owns they all own the Commanders. I'm not worried about, even being a little disappointed with Brian Burns too. Brian Burns still squeaked out a 25% pressure rate. He really didn't get that many pass rushing opportunities. Quick pivot on Brian Burns after we talk about Kayvon. I have a question to ask you. Make sure I don't forget it. But yeah, man, I just don't view. I think we need to stop thinking of Kayvon as a star until he proves it.
Yeah, he's not. That's where I'm at. Where it's like, all right, year 3, right? He was my giant factor for a reason, because I had doubts. And I'm like, all right, but come out and prove me wrong, because I will happily be like, year 3, we're here. But everyone just expects guys to make these great jumps, and sometimes they just are what they are. And what I think he is he's a guy who can take advantage of bad tackle play and finish with sacks. Not a lot of the guys, where it's like the 11.5 sacks were a fluke. No, they weren't. There's not a lot of... they
were legit sacks.
Yeah, there's not a lot of guys that do it, right? They're not these bullshit sacks where it's like long coverage or stunts. Like, no, he won. He had some great wins, some highlight reps. But what he was 55th out of 58 in pass rush win rate. He was not consistent at all last year. And he was... If you asked, like, hey, who are 2 players who had double-digit sacks who will not do it again this year? You would have looked at Kayvon Thibodeaux and Trayvon Walker. There was 75... Like, hey... I was not expecting him to go and be like, hey, he won the matchup versus Christian Darisaw and Brian O'Neal. But to put up the performance that he had was embarrassing. You had 77 guys who put up more production than you this week in the NFL. 77 more guys. That's bull. I don't care who you're playing. Like, oh, well, Darisaw is really good. Well, guess what? We drafted you 5th overall. You're supposed to have some wins versus him. I've seen Azeez Ojulari win versus Christian Darisaw. You're telling me you had nothing for him where he embarrassed you? So that's where I'm at with Kayvon. Because he's going to... I don't think he's going to get 11.5 sacks, but he's going to get sacks. He's going to have games where he gets 5 or more pressures, but he's not a consistent player. His contract will be nowhere near the max of the edge when it comes up, and he's going to be a player that did not live up to the 5th overall pick, but is a useful player.
I mean, it's one game. I don't want to overreact fully to one game, but
what from that game said, okay, well, he's going to figure it out against good tackles.
Oh, nothing. If anything, it
so he
makes
is
it
what
worse.
he was last year. That's where it's like he's the same thing that what he was last year.
Yeah, one pressure, a 5% pressure rate, one pressure, and this is why I brought up Brian Burns' pressure rate. Where we nobody was impressed with Brian Burns. I think he had like 19 pass rush opportunities, still found a way to get a 25% pressure rate according to Next Gen, which I saw some of those
don't
pressures.
use next gen stats anymore.
I saw some of those pressures. It's kind of fluky. I like it sometimes, but I sometimes don't.
Don't use next gen. But Burns didn't have the game that Kayvon did. He got doubled. But at the same time, we have issues with Burns as well, where, we got called haters on the Brian Burns trade for episode, where Brian Burns is a really good player.
But we had similar talking points to Kayvon.
Brian Burns is much better than Kayvon, but it's a similar situation on a higher level. Where it's okay, but you're not near the elite guys. You are, he is much better than Kayvon. He moves better. He's stronger, but you're not on the elite guys, and we just traded a second, fifth, and paid $30 million for a year to you, right? It's not a question of should he get the max or is he worth that trade slot. It's what you did to acquire him with Brian Burns.
And let me get you out in front of this. I've said it, but we'll say it again. If Kayvon Thibodeaux goes out there and has 2 sacks against the Commanders this weekend, don't come back to this clip and call us fucking haters and that we're wrong. Because I'm very confident that Kayvon Thibodeaux is going to have at least 1 sack this Sunday against Commanders. Because that's what he does. He's good against bad tackles. He has the Commanders figured out, which is awesome. It's a divisional opponent. You play him twice a year. Great. The Giants do very well against Commanders. Kayvon Thibodeaux's been a big part of that since he was drafted. It's not an Evan Neal situation where you're a useless player. He's a solid player. He's going to have really good games, and there's going to have games where you're like, where the hell were you? Yeah, and
it's happened his entire career so far.
But then you play the Cowboys and the Eagles, and those are the games that we're like, okay, well, we're playing good tackles, we're playing good football players, and where are we? We're not there. So that's the issue.
What do you think of did you see the clip of Jordan Renan asking him a question? He just didn't answer.
Yeah, I don't care.
I don't either, dude. People being like, this is unacceptable. It's like, yeah, it's a little annoying.
The same people, by the way, that Jordan Renan's a fucking dick. The same people that just are flat out disrespectful of Jordan Renan. Oh, I hate him, and he's an asshole. And then now you're like, oh, Kayvon Thibodeaux can't talk to a reporter that way.
And it'd be like, this is not what leaders do. And Big Blue VCR had the best tweet ever. He's like, are you serious? Michael Strahan was eating a PB&J telling the reporters they're basically morons. Antonio Pierce was blasting air horns during media sessions.
Yeah, Michael Strahan almost doing that while almost coming off of a fight with Plaxico Burress.
Yeah. So don't spare me the this isn't what leaders do type of shit. Like, I don't give a damn about my players' respect for the media.
Play better. Play better.
Yeah, play better. Yeah, play better. Play better. Play better, and we're telling him that.
I hope Kayvon goes into this weekend. I mean, he's going again. Washington, who he's going to. I think he is going to play well. But I hope Kayvon goes into this weekend and goes into a game where he plays a good tackle and he plays a good opponent, where maybe he's the underdog. Go in there and feel disrespected. Kayvon Thibodeaux, I want you to feel disrespected. I do. I do want you to feel that way. Maybe you'll play better.
Yeah. Next question.
This is coming from RJ at RJ_NFL. How will Daniel Jones' job security affect his ability to read an ad? Well, I'll tell you what, it doesn't affect my ability to read an ad because this episode is brought to you by Captain Morgan, the official spiced rum sponsor of the NFL. Legends start when you follow the captain, so we can't think of a better way to usher in a legendary 100th season than with a legendary adventure. Join Victor Cruz on September 26th when the Giants take on the Cowboys for an immersive game day experience. The Captain's Cruise with Cruz. Fans 21 and over in the Tri-State area can enter for a chance to attend, and if you're not near New York, you could be the lucky winner who gets to grab a member of your crew, get flown to New York City, and be part of how the Captain does game day. Head to followthecaptain.com by September 29th to win a sailgate experience like no other. That's followthecaptain.com. No purchase necessary. US 21 plus, 25 plus for 25 plus for grand prize. Ends 3/5/25. Subject to drawing deadlines for specific prizes. Subject to rules at www.captainmorgan.com/followthecaptain. Sponsor Diego Americas Incorporated, New York, New York. Captain Morgan Original Spiced Rum, 35% alcohol by volume. Captain Morgan Rum Company in New York, New York. Drink responsibly. Captain's orders. You'll be glad you did.
You'll be glad you did. Next question.
Next question is coming from Ben Butler at BenButler7. Should we be concerned with the breakdown in relationship between Hyatt and the coaches?
Yes. Because again, he only got 4 snaps in the first half, 16 in total, basically garbage time snaps. Really, the only thing that can fix this, in my opinion, is just catches and targets and playing time. Right?
I think he's going to get it against Washington this weekend.
He hit one. Darius Slayton's in the concussion protocol for one.
Oh, sure.
But I do think that there's a little bit of a message sent week 1, and then, all right, but we want to use you and need you. Because his playing time last year was not a game plan. That's not because of the game plan. That was because of unhappiness on both sides with that. But this is going to make people mad. There's a big reason why Darius Slayton's out there.
Because he's better.
Because that. But the starting quarterback wants him out there, right? Because the starting quarterback thinks he's better, wants to have him to play out there. I don't know. But here's the thing where I get a little frustrated in this is I know they traded up for him, so they pick him in the second round. But, you're not a first-round pick either. You need to go out there and earn that shit. So I don't know where this is all going. We're going to get some type of resolution on it in this season, I believe, whether it's just Jalen Hyatt playing more. But here's what I'll say is this whole, well, we gotta put Hyatt in for his progression. No, progress. No, you progress. You can see in practice if he's someone that is a starting outside wide receiver in the NFL, or if he's simply a deep threat. And I think they view him simply as a deep threat who can obviously do some other things, but he's not going to be as good as a wide receiver that everyone be like, oh, he's not that good, and Darius Slayton for fucking 5 years. So if he's not as good as Darius Slayton, who also is not limited to just the short area of the field, then it's sick if you want to play him, but he needs to just be something and not just the second wide receiver on the outside for the New York Giants.
Yeah, I mean, there's people in front of Jalen Hyatt that are better than him. I understand. I could understand his frustration. But, I mean, how many times do you hear organizations say that we don't care where you're drafted, we don't care how much money you're making? It also, Darius Slayton is a wide receiver that is making money in the NFL. He is on his second contract in the NFL. Jalen Hyatt is so if you even
you're
if
a
you
third round pick, dude. You got passed up for teams passed on you for Marvin Mims.
Even if you want to go that route, Darius Slayton is not this 5th round draft pick that was picked this year, and he's starting over Jalen Hyatt. No, Darius Slayton has been a pro for a long time. Daniel Jones has been throwing him the football for a long time. They have a lot of chemistry together. So I'm gonna say the same line that I said on the game recap. I don't know, work harder, bro. Who cares? Work harder. I know that's on a shirt somewhere. So I do think Hyatt. I mean, even if Slayton does play and even if he's cleared from the concussion protocol, I can very much see the Giants coaching staff giving Hyatt more run this weekend. It's very easy to see that could happen.
Yeah, absolutely. He's gonna get more run. His playing time last week was not simply game plan stuff. All right, you look at the total snaps and be like, well, that's kind of what a wide receiver 4 is. Okay, but he played. They were in garbage time. 4 snaps in the first half is not what you would expect for Jalen Hyatt, no matter how big of a fan of Darius Slayton you are. So we'll see. Either he's going to play this week, which I think he will, or it's just okay, this relationship's just totally dead. So we'll
horrible,
see.
That's horrible.
But here's the thing: is I'm not going to cry about Jalen Hyatt, right? Go out there and fucking earn it. He's done nothing to show me that he's better than Darius Slayton.
I will cry that, not cry, but I'll be really upset that he hasn't progressed, because this is.
Oh yeah, it's a
draft pick. It's a top 100 draft pick that in year
that
2
you
we're
traded
just
up for.
They traded up for that. In year 2 we're just going to be all right, well, you're just a deep threat. Not great.
Yeah. I mean, go listen to our wide receiver preview of that draft class. Next question.
Bobby Skinner. Joe Mama, hey. At Amo GS Waos, there's probably a way to say that I'm not saying. Amags Waos. Do we trust Joe Shane to read an ad in the 2025 draft?
Well, we'll see. But one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be covered and get ready for the season ahead with quality shades that are built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. That's huge, right? Don't buy these super expensive sunglasses. It's a bad investment. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all the outdoor adventures. Plus, if your shades ever go missing or take an unexpected hit, don't sweat it. They have the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair is backed by lost or broken replacements, right? You know, I'm a big sunglasses guy being out in Florida. You know, you go out and get your coffee in the morning. You're not facing the sun. You drive back, you're facing into the sun, and it's like, where's my Shady Rays? Because I'm going to crash and die if I don't have my Shady Rays. So Shady Rays is literally out here saving lives. So if you don't love your shades, exchange for a new pair or return worry-free within 30 days. And plus, don't forget the lost or broken replacements. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Go to shadyrays.com and use code GIANTS for 50% off 2+ pairs of polarized sunglasses. And that offer applies to the custom Jimmy and Jake collab shades. So go get yours now. If you know what the Jimmy and Jake shades are, there are Boss's shades. So check those out. You'll be glad you did. I want comments about Jimmy and Jake and their shades. Ray, you'll be glad you did. Next question.
Be glad you did. Jetro Man.
Getroman. Oh,
at XCR398. What went wrong schematically with the defense? The edges got no pressure and got gashed outside of the run game. Any comments on Dex's snap percentage? Seemed like he was missed every time he was subbed. And Research Rick, I have numbers on that. Any positive / things you'd like to see changed? Do you want to go through the Dexter Lawrence on-field snaps versus off-field snaps, Bobby?
Because honestly, I'm not even going to answer a ton of this question. I just want to talk about what did Shane Bowen's defense look in the debut. So why don't you hit some of the answers of this question?
Here's Shane Bowen's defense schematically. It's really it seems to be good with Dexter Lawrence on the field, and off the field, it's a different fucking conversation. On the field, when Dexter Lawrence is there, 15 rushes, 56 yards. That's 3.7 average per carry. That's pretty solid. 13 of 18 for 120 yards, including a sack, the first series of the game. When he's off the field, 11 rushes of 55 yards. That's 5 yards per carry. That's much different. And then when he was off the field, Sam Darnold went 6 for 6 for 81 yards. So, yeah, it seems to be the more things change, the more they say the same. The defense, I mean, that's honestly really bad, though. Like, especially
Dex
in the passing
is so good,
game.
dude.
Yeah.
Dex had a 50% pass rush win rate. I wanted to kill Austin Gale, who I like, but he's like, we got to trade this guy to another team. I'm like, no, you will not trade my source of joy. Oh,
I started to get some quote tweets, Bobby, where I compiled all of his pressures from this past weekend. Also 50% win rate, and I think he was also number 1 in true pass sets and win rate as well. That's number 1 across interior defensive linemen and edge rushers. So
it was nuts.
But I started to get quote tweets from multiple fan bases, one of them including the Vikings, another one including the Cowboys, which the Giants would be nuts to do, which they're not going to do anyway.
No, you're never trading Dexter Lawrence. I don't
trading
care
Dexter Lawrence.
Unless you offer a proven franchise quarterback right now, you are not trading Dexter Lawrence.
No. Get out.
So suck it. But I want to talk about like where they failed and what the Shane Bowen defense was in its first game. Where they failed was the pass rush outside of Dex. Dex had, the 7 total sacks, hits, and pressures. The rest of the team had 4. 2 of those coming from DJ Davidson. Right? So that's where. Also in the run game, it's fun to talk about the edges, get to take chances and get upfield and stuff. When you're not structured well, and those guys are up the field, at least for some giant... there's this Aaron Jones cutback play. Justin went for 19 yards, where Brian Burns is chasing a sack, hoping it's play action. And for some reason, Nacho jumps down a gap. The linebacker... And the hole is 10 yards wide.
Yeah.
Right?
And something that Bill Belichick talked about on Manningcast is the C-gap runs, because it's the Jets were getting killed by that all night with the 49ers. And I think some of the numbers back that up, like runs going to the left end, and I think that's Kayvon Thibodeaux's side. It
was
one
Burns
of the ends
too.
One of the ends had a lot of success. So those C gap runs seem to be open for the Vikings a ton.
Also, Nick McLeod wasn't very good in the pass or the run. I think Nick McLeod, one, is a nickel corner. That's where he's best suited. And on the outside, he just allows stuff underneath. So when they're playing their zone, guys are able to, they were able to attack him a couple times. You saw the run on that second drive of the game where he gave a touchdown, and that happened another play. So McLeod's not very good. The other thing was, why is Flott playing the nickel after playing the entire camp on the outside? The entirety of camp, OTAs on the outside. Andrew Phillips, you gave him the nickel job over McLeod, who wasn't struggling in practice. It wasn't like McLeod was let's just put the rookie in because McLeod's not doing well. McLeod actually looked good in nickel, and they put Phillips in there. And for some reason, you didn't put him in there. And when Phillips was out there, he looked pretty good.
Made plays.
It was only a very limited sample size, not much real coverage snaps outside of third and longs. But he did make some plays. So why is Flott out there, who, again, got fooled on a play and gave up a touchdown? And so those are the issues. One, I just think the secondary is bad. The ways they played the Vikings, they doubled Jefferson, right? They doubled Jefferson so much. And whenever they didn't, he won, right? You think the big play up the sideline, the touchdown. That touchdown they gave to Justin Jefferson, that might have been one of the worst play calls I've ever seen on a 4th and 2 at the goal line. Right, it was a bad blitz that had no safety nets underneath it and didn't pressure the quarterback because you had your free rusher was rushing from depth, and you have no threat of helping Justin Jefferson. That's an awful call. But they run from light boxes, 70% of the time. Now here's where it's good, is they do mix up the coverages a ton, and I just tweeted it out. Let me pull up I almost ripped a page of paper. This was the coverage usage. It was cover 3 was the number one at 32%, cover 1 and cover 6, 18%, cover 2 man, 14%. That was they like to get the man coverage on third down. Cover 4, 7%, cover 2, 7%, and then cover 0, 4%, that one play at the goal line. So they switched it up. They rotate the safety. It's a lot of what we came to expect from Shane Bowen in Tennessee. And if they got even just a little more pressure, Justin, they're going to create turnovers. Darnold had there's a couple more plays that could have been Darnold turnovers, and that was with really no pressure at all outside of Dexter Lawrence. So if they can get Burns and Kayvon to be at their level, it is a defense that can create some turnovers and hopefully be a little better in the red zone. But the personnel is just not that good. That's
You reminded me of something. You didn't remind me that I had a question to ask you. And we're going to go through this briefly about Brian Burns. I didn't love the Brian Burns is going to line up in the B gap, right? The A gap or the B gap on third downs, where you have Azeez Ojulari and Kayvon Thibodeaux as the two edge rushers with Dex on the field. Part of me is just if you want to put Azeez on the field, then take an edge rusher off the field and give him a break. Or I need Burns and Thibodeaux as your two edges. And then put Elijah Chapman out there if you want somebody from the inside. I just don't think Brian Burns is going to be effective at all rushing the passer on third down and this pseudo NASCAR package. I don't think he's not Justin Tuck. He's not going to be effective from rushing the passer from the inside. What do you think?
So they did that thing we saw in training camp where they would put the edge at the stack linebacker in a true 4-3 if you just drew up 4-3. They did that 5 times. That's stupid. They also leave the flats kind of soft and open. I think that can work if you put him on the line, but they were kind of having him come from depth a little bit, and that's not going to work.
Yeah, he's in a 2-point stance where he's immediately going to lose the leverage battle against somebody who's bigger and stronger than him.
Yeah, so I wouldn't do that much, but you really didn't see that much. It was more of when they drop him in the coverage.
I feel like I saw that on third down more often than I wanted to. That was just me at the game, who I have that all 22 perspective from the get-go. So I don't know. Maybe I'm overreacting to that.
No, there was times where they literally would line him up at stack backer. I actually timestamped them for my game notes. I think there was 4 times they did that. They did with Azeez one time, but it wasn't as much passing down NASCAR stuff. It was honestly, I don't know what it is. I'd like to hear an explanation. Maybe I'll have one of the reporters ask about that and why they do that. But yeah, I don't have the explanation on that. Justin, we're at an hour, so we're gonna end this, right?
Yes.
All right, we'll be back Friday with a preview pod, and hey, we're gonna We're going to tell you everything the Giants should do, and hopefully they freaking listen this time. So why don't you guys listen? Listen. All right, we'll see you on the next episode. Until then, let's go Big Blue.